So some of the passages for Satan are the ones that stuck in my mind from an early age. For example, there's a wonderful description, first of all, of his descent from heaven, when he's cast down with all his rebel angels. And then there's a marvellous bit, they're actually in hell, which is described in very dramatic terms by Milton, and in the midst of all the sort of fire and rolling gulfs of flame and sulphur and so on, Satan calls up all his legions of cast down angels and tries to galvanise them into action and defiance again. So there's a marvellous description. 9 times the space that measures day and night to mortal men, he with his horrid crew lay vanquished, rolling in the fiery gulf, confounded though immortal. But his doom reserved him to more wrath, for now the thought both of lost happiness and lasting pain torments him. Round he throws his baleful eyes, that witnessed huge affliction and dismay, mixed with obdurate pride and steadfast hate. At once as far as angels ken he views a dismal situation, waste and wild, a dungeon horrible, on all sides round as one great furnace flamed, yet from those flames no light, but rather darkness visible, served only to discover sights of woe, regions of sorrow, doleful shades, where peace and rest can never dwell. Hope never comes that comes to all, but torture without end still urges, and a fiery deluge fed with ever-burning sulphur unconsumed. Such place eternal justice had prepared for those rebellious, here their prison ordained in utter darkness, and their portion set as far removed from God and light of heaven as from the centre thrice to the utmost pole. Oh, how unlike the place from whence they fell! There the companions of his fall are whelmed with floods and whirlwinds of tempestuous fire he soon discerns, and weltering by his side, one next to him in power and next in crime, long after known in Palestine, and named Beelzebub. And then Satan makes his famous speech to the fallen angels, which is very dramatic. If I can find it. Yes, here we are. Abject and lost lay these, covering the flood, under amazement of their hideous change. He called so loud, he, that is Satan, that all the hollow deep of hell resounded. Princes, potentates, warriors, the flower of heaven once yours, now lost, if such astonishment as this can seize eternal spirits, or have ye chosen this place after the toil of battle to repose your wearied virtue, for the ease you find to slumber here, as in the vales of heaven? Or in this abject posture have ye sworn to adore the conqueror, who now beholds cherub and seraph rolling in the flood with scattered arms and ensigns, till anon his swift pursuers from heaven's gates discern the vantage, and descending tread us down, thus drooping, or with linked thunderbolts transfix us to the bottom of this gulf. Awake, arise, or be for ever fallen. They heard and were abashed, and up they sprung upon the wing, as when men wont to watch on duty, sleeping found by whom they dread, rouse and bestir themselves ere well awake. Nor did they not perceive the evil plight in which they were, or the fierce pains not feel, yet to their general's voice they soon obeyed innumerable. And there's a marvellous description of the rebel angels rising like a great sort of flock of birds into the sky, so to speak, of heaven. Now, of course, it's not all like that. Parts of it are very apocalyptic like that, but there are other very, very beautiful and moving parts. One of my favourite parts of Paradise Lost also is the description of the Garden of Eden. The description of Eden, the Garden of Eden, here's a little extract from that. Southward through Eden went a river large, nor changed his course, but through the shaggy hill passed underneath engulfed, for God had thrown that mountain as his garden mould high raised upon the rapid current, which through veins of porous earth with kindly thirst updrawn, rose a fresh fountain, and with many a rill watered the garden. Thence united fell down the steep glade, and met the nether flood, which from his darksome passage now appears, and now divided into 4 main streams, runs diverse, wandering many a famous realm and country whereof here needs no account, but rather to tell how, if art could tell, how from that sapphire fount the crisped brooks, rolling on orient pearls and sands of gold, with mazy error under pendant shades ran nectar, visiting each plant, and fed flowers worthy of paradise, which not nice art in beds and curious knots, but nature boon powered forth profuse on hill and dale and plain, both where the morning sun first warmly smote the open field, and where the unpierced shade embrowned the noontide bowers. Thus was this place, a happy rural seat of various view, groves whose rich trees wept odorous gums and balm, others whose fruit burnished with golden rind hung amiable, Hesperian fables true, if true here only, and of delicious taste. Betwixt them lawns or level downs, and flocks grazing the tender herb were interposed, of palmy hillock, or the flowery lap of some irriguous valley spread her store, flowers of all hue, and without thorn the rose. Another side, umbrageous grots and caves of cool recess, o'er which the mantling vine lays forth her purple grape, and gently creeps luxuriant. Meanwhile murmuring waters fall down the slope hills dispersed, or in a lake that to the fringed bank, with myrtle crowned, her crystal mirror holds, unite their streams. The birds their choir apply, airs, vernal airs, breathing the smell of field and grove, attune the trembling leaves, while universal Pan, knit with the graces and the hours in dance, led on the eternal spring. And so on. It's a really lovely description, quite an amazing piece of verbal elegance. And he also he uses a lot of similars. This is one of Milton's habits which to modern minds might be a bit difficult. He's always referring to like as in such and such, or as when so and so, and they're mostly classical references, also sometimes biblical references, but Milton assumed that people would understand these references. In fact, he originally was going to write Paradise Lost in Latin, apparently, but then he decided to do it in English. And then the thing I hadn't realised, not having read the whole book, was how Paradise Lost ends. The ending, the very, very ending, is very famous because it has the famous lines that depict Adam and Eve having been cast out of paradise, looking back in regret at what they've lost. But what's interesting is the last book of the whole poem is basically an address by the Archangel Gabriel to Adam and Eve, and he's explaining to them what is going to happen to their descendants. So although they've been cast out of paradise, he explains that one day one of their descendants, a man, will appear who will also in fact be the Son of God, and who will actually redeem mankind. So it's a kind of consolation. So you get a kind of a preview, a very rapid preview for Adam and Eve of the rest of human history before they actually leave. It's quite moving, actually. And then, as they leave, this is how he describes the ending. They're driven out, and an angel with a flaming sword guards the gate of paradise, so they can't go back. And they look back, and they say, he says, "They looking back, all the eastern side beheld a paradise, so late their happy seat, waved over by that flaming brand, the gate with dreadful faces thronged and fiery arms. Some natural tears they dropped, but wiped them soon. The world was all before them, where to choose their place of rest, and Providence their guide. They, hand in hand, with wandering steps and slow, through Eden took their solitary way." And there's the last lines of Paradise Lost. And I'm very glad to say that after years of struggle, I finally managed to read all the way through to the end. And it is one of the great works of English poetry, and if you're not acquainted with it, I strongly suggest you to get acquainted with it. And if you've read bits of it but you've never read the whole of it, I do encourage you to read the whole of it, because it is the most wonderful poetry, and one of the great masters of poetic diction alongside Shakespeare was, of course, John Milton.